Thank you for listening to the CJ Mars Radio Network. WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York. We're bringing you the best of paranormal radio 24/7. Featuring Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio on Monday nights, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Paranormalities and Ponderings on Tuesday night, 8 Central, 9 Eastern. Paranormal Experience, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Parley with Michael Gray, Thursday night, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Saturday, Two-Faced News, 8 Central, 9 Eastern. And Sunday, Blackthorn Path at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Looking for drama and nonsense? Look somewhere else. If you're looking for the best in paranormal news, tech tips, advice, and entertainment, stay tuned. That's all we do. Here on the CJ Mars Radio Network. Thanks for listening.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.
Lies and in between, conspiracies, and those who dare to speak the truth. Get ready for a walk on the wild side. Welcome to Parley with your host, Michael Gray.
Okay, hi all, this is Mike Gray, and welcome to Parley, and I'm sorry we just had some technical difficulties, if I could say that word, technical difficulties, adjusting Skype, and we're live tonight. We have a live show. I'm sorry. We have William Zabel, and tonight's going to be an open topic night. You know, any discussion, whatever comes into our head, anybody can call in. And, hey, William, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, William. Hey, I'd like to, once again, I'd like to apologize to you and all of the audience at CJ Mars and Parley and, for these technical difficulties. No big deal. You know, this is what live TV is all about. And, oh my goodness, we have Mark Sargent calling in. Mark Sargent, Flat Earth guy. Hold on. Okay, Mark Sargent, you on the air with us?
I am on the air.
Okay. Okay. No more surprises, folks. I'm sorry. That was a technical glitch. We have on the air with us William Zabel, an author, and Mark Sargent. and we're going to do an open topic night. Open topic, anything goes. So, William, why don't you introduce yourself and what you wrote? You've been on the show before. Actually, both of you guys have been, and we'll get to it.
Okay. Let me start out by saying that I studied a lot of the different conspiracy topics. I got involved in the Columbine research at the request of a friend who lived down in the area, was concerned about the inconsistencies. Spent a lot of time researching that. Before that, I had researched mind control, had looked into the Oklahoma City bombing. My main career, what I've done over the years is graphic design, motion graphics for TV and film, and such like. But I've always dealt with these types of, these cover-ups and these crimes committed by government corporations. So that's pretty much been my main focus for about the past 20, 25 years.
Right. Okay. Excellent. And Mark Sargent, you want to give a little of your resume and?
Sure. I was a general conspiracy guy for years and years, and then 9 months ago, I decided I would try to debunk the ludicrous and ridiculous flat Earth theory, and spent 9 months banging my head on the desk and holding a globe in my hand and trying to figure out why I couldn't prove it was a globe. And then February of this year, I decided to get into it. I really hadn't been on YouTube much at all, and got into it and released a series called Flat Earth Clues, and gained a whole bunch of traction to where now it appears, as shown by the sheer amount of Flat Earth videos that are, more Flat Earth videos. Yeah, it's definitely. It's gotten nutty. To where now it's moved into the mainstream conspiracy conversation, not without controversy, mind you, but definitely with a lot more validity than it ever has before, and that's where I am now.
Well, we'll talk about a little bit of flat.
We can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about.
Because we're going to have a roundtable on the flat Earth and the globe thing. That's going to be an own separate show. But let me just say this about that one little topic.
Sure.
For 20 years, I've been into every kind of conspiracy, UFOs, JFK assassination, Lincoln assassination, A to Z, the Clinton death list, FEMA camps, A to Z, I never heard of this flat Earth thing until a few months ago.
Yeah.
And now it almost seems like it's getting ubiquitous. Now, even people that on YouTube, the YouTube channels, they're even getting into it. So it's getting traction. Now, I will say that I believe everything NASA has told us is a complete lie. Like the moon landings, like the space shuttle. They even showed the pictures of the astronauts that died in the Challenger are alive and well, and they look aged. So did you see that?
Yeah, which makes perfect sense.
And all these psyops that they're pulling on us now. Since this is an open, Mark, since you were the initial guest on this, is there something you'd like to touch on and talk about?
No, I was just thinking of rolling with it. Really,
I'm sorry, William. Jeez, William.
He should.
I apologize, guys.
No, it's okay.
My head is zooming around. William, since I initially asked you, is there something you wanted to touch on? Is there something you want to cover and talk about? Since it's open topic, any topic, anything you want to talk about?
Well, I think that what we're talking about, like the flat Earth thing. This comes from a lot of the Hollywood, the video games, things like that. A lot of the people that are into trying to study the Earth, the space sciences and things, they've come up with this idea because they say, well, their observance is if you fly in a plane far enough, you never see anything curve. It just keeps going straight. And this comes out of that whole, scientific realm, and Hollywood has actually kind of hinted at this lately of the flat Earth. Some of their movies kind of give hints of this, and I think that's where it's pushing towards, and it's actually started in the scientific community. I mean, you've got people in the scientific community that don't believe in earth sciences and history the way we do. There's this whole new mindset that's trying to drag us, back, a couple of hundred years is what they're trying to do. And I think that's where a lot of this is coming from.
Yeah. And let me say this, that is a worry that this is a psyop, that the whole flat earth thing is actually created by the Illuminati because they want to bring us back down to a time where we're peasants and we're uneducated, and what would be better than to have us conned into thinking the earth is flat again.
Yeah,
so I can understand that point. Now, but wait. But could somebody please explain to me why the flight time from New York to California, and I looked it up, it's 5 hours and 20 minutes, and from California back to New York, or let's say New York to LA, and LA back to New York, is 5 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah. How is that possible?
How is that possible? Because if you're in a plane, if the Earth is spinning, and see, we're getting onto this topic. This is a whole other show. If the Earth is spinning the way they say, then California, you're in a plane going 500 miles an hour. California is coming to you 1,000 miles an hour, and then you land. So let's say it takes 5.5 hours. Going from California back to New York should be much longer because New York is going away from you.
Yeah. The argument, and again, I don't cover it in my clues because sometimes you lose people. I try to make as broad strokes as possible. But you got.
But there are people that are saying that the atmosphere, it's impossible. People are saying, well, the atmosphere is moving with the Earth. Well, okay, fine, but wait, when you look up at with clouds, the clouds go every which way. Some days they go this way, some days they go that way. know.
Yeah, it's an interesting argument because because they say, well, gravity locks you down. It's like, okay, does gravity lock you down both ways then? Because you're either flying with the curve or with the spin or against the spin. And if you're flying with the spin, okay, fine. Then it's compensating and everything's fine. But if you're flying against the spin, is it also locking you down?
But Mark, you know what? Not just east or west. What about north and south? Because from New York to Florida, by the time you leave New York, Florida would be 2 hours later would not be in the same position where
I know, and it's a puzzler because it can't. Unfortunately, it can't be. There's arguments on both sides, and it can't be proved very well either way. But the one that I like even better than that, which is way easier for people to get their heads around, and I don't know if you and I discussed it, was the weight, the gravity one, the merry-go-round scenario, and that is if the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, roughly 1,100 miles an hour at the equator, then you've got a centrifugal force thing, kind of like a merry-go-round. Not as strong as a merry-go-round, obviously, but you're spinning 1,000 miles at the equator. But if you're standing on the North Pole, you're spinning at 0 miles an hour. Just like standing at the middle of a merry-go-round. You're not doing anything.
That concept is covered in 2010: A Space Odyssey.
There you go.
Remember that? Where they go to the ship and they go to the center of the ship because that's where it's spinning the least. But as they're walking further to the edge where the hatch is, they get heavier.
Yeah, and that argument is really interesting because if you take a 100-pound weight at the North Pole and weigh it with a digital scale and it says 100 pounds, if you take it to the equator, it should weigh a little bit less. Maybe not 10 pounds, maybe not even a pound, but we have really precise measuring devices, and that could solve that this question real fast because it should weigh slightly less, and nobody's bothered to deal with that one. I think it's very, very intriguing.
Well, I want to, because I have Jay Widener agreeing and you, Mark, agreeing to do a roundtable specifically on the flat Earth round Earth globe debate. I want to save this whole topic for that.
Please do.
So because let's save that. Let's
how by the way did you get Jay to
because I'm sending him all these videos and he's saying to me I can't debunk some of this stuff. And it's frustrating him, but then he's saying, "This is all a psyop."
Yeah. So, and I know he mentioned, not to get off topic, and I know he mentioned Eric, and I know he mentioned Matt. He didn't mention me specifically, and I don't know if he watched any of my stuff.
He didn't mention anybody by name. I've been sending him I've been sending him a lot of stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So yeah, it's not just you or
Oh, good. I was getting.
He didn't mention anybody by name, but like I said, a lot of people are saying that this is actually that they're fooling us. But
okay, let me throw one thing out at you, and I know we won't belabor the point because I know you got a guest on your show that isn't doing this thing, and we can talk about whatever you want. But I do want to mention this, and that is because the PSYOP question has been thrown at me a whole bunch, and I mentioned this to Kelly Harper just today, as a matter of fact, where I said, look, I don't blame people for giving me grief because look, yes, it's true, I have done a ton of interviews since March, a ton. And that's not the part that's bothering me because, everyone's saying, well, I'm sorry, it was William, right?
Yeah.
William's about,
yeah. William. It's coming from the science community first. There's two things that bother me. One is that I'm talking about this, because I certainly didn't want to be, being put as the champion of flat Earth. Not by any stretch. No, that's not the part that's bothering me. The part that's bothering me is that I'm being allowed to talk about this. And, I'm getting on things without, no debunkers. Nobody's calling me up to give me harassing phone calls. The hate mail, the emails have been really, really mild by comparison. I've gotten a few recently, but they're all anonymous. So if this is being allowed to happen, then why? Is it part of a bigger picture? I don't know. I can only tell you that, look, I'm not part of the PSYOP program, but I can't convince people of that. I can only say, look, I'm good out there, and people ask me to do interviews. I'm gonna do them. So that's all I can tell you. But maybe it's bigger than that. Maybe there's something else going on. But we'll get to that at a later time.
Hey, William, to close this out, do you have you want to add to anything on this topic?
Yeah, when I was in college, I took physics. I was in engineering school up in Boulder at the Aerospace Engineering College.
I'm in Boulder right now.
Oh, you are? Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Right on.
Yeah, but some of the classes I took, they talked about that there is still very little known about electromagnetism and actual time, and I know that they have cross-connected with the psychology and psychiatry department to talk about how humans recognize how much time has gone by. And they call it the I can't remember the name for it. They had a name a psychiatrist did for how your mind knows naturally what time is without looking at a clock, how you know a minute's gone by or an hour. And they said it was the unknown relationships between time and electromagnetism, that if they could really understand that better, that there might be a possibility someday that time travel or even light speed travel would be possible once they understood those connections.
Interesting. All right.
Time travel.
Yeah.
Well,
by the way,
I would go if I could time travel. I would go to myself as a 7-year-old kid and smack the crap out of me.
But
tell me, don't do this, don't do that. I would.
By the way, I talked with some people, and they were telling me, and I absolutely believe it now, that time travel is way easier on an enclosed system than it is on an Earth, a round Earth spinning in space, because everything is localized and very stable, and you can jump from one moment to another. It takes a huge chunk out of the equations. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Earth isn't moving.
Exactly. It's not moving, so you don't have to worry about beaming yourself into an empty part of space. You're just beaming yourself to the same point on the grid.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So any people out there trying to build their time machines, keep that in mind.
So maybe that movie, H.G. Wells, the newest one that they just did, where he's sitting in his house, and then you see how everything's changing around him.
Oh, Guy Pearce, yeah. That was I loved that version. I thought that was fantastic. Yeah,
pretty cool movie.
Yeah.
Okay, I just saw a thing on YouTube about Walmart, all the Walmart closings last year and this year. Not just the five or six, or they closed, a few in Texas, one in Florida in Bradenton, which is near Tampa, and they closed 6 all at once. Did you see that? And they said, plumbing issues. But throughout the year, and this is so true because there was one here near to me, there have been all these bomb bomb. What do you call it when someone calls in a bomb threat? And Walmarts have been evacuated for like a day, like a bunch of them, in a lot of places, and they'll evacuate the Walmart, and then when people ask the cops, well, what happened? They go, we can't say.
Yeah. Let me kind of interject something into the Walmart thing. If you look at some of the YouTube videos, they talk about underground tunnels connecting Walmarts. And, everybody laughs that off and says, oh, yeah, here we go. But I will tell you here in Denver, I've been in an underground tunnel that goes from the Denver Lakewood Federal Center all the way to downtown Denver, where it connects and you can get out and go up stairs to the City and County of Denver building. The tunnel then goes over to the VA center where you can go up into the VA, and then it travels on out to DIA. And it's a 2-lane highway, and I've been on that. I've been in a maintenance vehicle going through that. So it's not as crazy as people think it is.
Right, yeah. I mean, and there's the conspiracy that in the movie Escape from New York, there was a part that was cut out where there is actually a tram or an underground subway that goes from New York to L.A. or, East Coast to West Coast. And there's a lot of people say that's really true, that they have there's a tunnel.
I'm convinced they have them. I got to see firsthand when I was out in Nevada the nuclear powered tunnel boring machine that the Air Force has, and it actually melts the rock as it goes through the underground, through mountains, whatever, and it creates this nice smooth tunnel, and they claim they can do 23 miles a day with that tunnel boring machine.
Yeah, because the bore or the tip looks like a giant light bulb, right?
Yeah.
And it gets so hot. It gets so hot it just literally melts the rock.
Yes.
And then as it goes through, it leaves the cave. It's like smooth like glass, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they don't have to do any work after that. Yeah, it's a done deal once they do that. I can tell you up here at Grand Junction, where they have the USGS monitoring station for earthquakes, that facility is underground. And when you take the highway from the Denver Federal Center, you go right up into the hills up to that. And when you get off at Grand Junction, they have a tube shuttle that goes from there that goes south. And I've only seen like the entranceway, but it's like a tube shuttle, like what you see in the sci-fi movies, and it goes down into southern Colorado somewhere. They wouldn't say where.
Well, what about Mark? Have you been paying attention to this Jade Helm thing?
Yeah. Why? I couldn't ignore it. There's been too many people sending me Jade Helm links.
Now, what do you guys think about this? Lake Blue ice cream or Blue Bell ice cream?
Oh, Blue Bell ice cream. Yeah.
They had a listeria scare in their ice cream, right?
Yeah.
And okay, fine. And then they recalled a bunch of ice cream, and now, what is it called? Blue Lake, or what is it called?
Blue Bell.
Blue Bell.
Blue Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Blue Bell ice cream trucks have been seen in convoys moving around in the military.
Yeah. Well, that's straight out of the if you remember Close Encounters from 1977.
Yeah, right. The Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah. Old tricks are the best tricks.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so but why are they using these ice cream trucks because they have freezers inside?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hey,
so what are they moving? Bioweapons?
No, let me tell you, I found this out when I was in Panama for about 2 weeks in '89 during the Panama invasion. They were using civilian refrigerator trucks down there for bodies after our government invaded, because our idiot military couldn't get their refrigerator trucks down there, so they were using locals.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
You think they're storing dead bodies in those Lake Blue Blue Bell?
I think it's a standby system is what it is, to do just that.
Put corpses in there.
Oh yeah, that'd be the only reason you'd use them.
Huh? What?
The guy who runs Blue Bell has an Army intelligence background. If you look on the bio on their website, Blue Bell has got to be connected, because all their high-level people all have military backgrounds, and high-level. We're not just talking about grunts. They all have high-level backgrounds, and a lot of people on various websites have checked into this and have emailed these people, and they said, yes, executive so-and-so was in Army intelligence. This guy was, at Bethesda, was an Army colonel. There are all kinds of high-level backgrounds at that company. So it wouldn't surprise me if that company has a dual purpose.
Yeah, wow, man. And you know that, Sam Walton, if you look on his Wikipedia, he ran the Japanese internment camps.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
That was part of his job when he was in the military in World War II. Yeah. Yeah. He organized them, you know what I mean? He was part of it. I'm not saying he was the sole, because he was a captain, but, he was there running those camps.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and if the government has to go to a martial law scenario, they're going to go with the people that have had the training. They're not going to try and train people in the middle of an emergency. If they've got just like
what's the point? But what's the point of closing down these Walmarts and putting razor wire all around these Walmarts and around the roof and everything? What are they going to use these Walmarts for?
Well, if you go clear back to the 1950 emergency action, they had the emergency war powers papers written in 1950 by Congress. In those, they admit that they can take over any civilian facilities and that they have already made agreements with the owners of civilian facilities to use them in time of emergency, and that was in the 1950 Emergency War Powers Act.
Yeah. Do you think that they're preparing for some kind of an invasion from Russia or China? Because
I think they've got a multitude of issues they're looking at. It isn't just Russia and China. They know this economy is bad. They know the banks have made a mess of this. The corporations have. Congress has made a mess of it. They know that this is a time bomb waiting to go off, and they know when it does, people aren't going to just sit back and say, "Oh, well, that's the way that one went." When people,
but they're moving howitzers. Why would you need howitzers? Those cannons on wheels?
I don't know.
What do you use that against civilians for? What are you going to do? Bomb cities?
It's stupid to use howitzers. They've got a lot more advanced technology to deal with any kind of insurgency within the cities. I saw this in Panama in '89, that week I was there during the invasion. They were using high-tech gear to settle people down there. They don't need howitzers. Even if the Chinese and Russians are invading, using howitzers against an invasion force like that, an advanced army like China and Russia, that would be like us using a Glock to try and take out a dragon or something.
Can I interject?
Yeah, say something, Mark.
There is something about howitzers, though, that's unique to them, and it's been published in several things, and that is howitzers are one of the few surviving artillery pieces out there right now that can survive an EMP.
Oh, that's right, because they're old-fashioned. They don't use electronics. They're all manual.
That's true.
They don't need any power. All you have to do is drag them around. I only mentioned that because that was it caught my eye when I was watching that Johnny Depp movie, which nobody liked, Transcendence. That they had to bypass his electromagnetic abilities, and so they brought in howitzers, and that was the biggest thing they could actually drag in. So they used old trucks that didn't have any electronics. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there.
Well, do you know that they say that 1/4 of the Mexican population is in this country?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Okay, now now I'm not worried about Mexicans, but I'd be worried about either Russians or Chinese, coming in here and stirring the pot.
Yeah.
Bad enough we have our government creating ISIS or ISIL and Al Qaeda, and they could be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as far as I'm concerned, they're just Blackwater and G and Academy, with turbans on their head.
Yeah. Can I say something about the EMP thing real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I studied a lot of the stuff back when my grandmother was a civil defense coordinator, and she got me a lot of the videos of the nuclear tests and everything. And the biggest test that they did out in Nevada, they were scared of EMPs back then, but the only thing that the EMP blast of one of their biggest bombs out there. All it did was take out a switchboard at an old rotary dial telephone thing. I think that they're using the EMP stuff as a front. They're going to try and blame this on the Chinese. They're going to let it, or Russians, and they're going to let a nuke go off somewhere in a city, and they're going to say, oh, the EMP blast, it took out the whole United States. Experts in nuclear energy say it's not possible for an EMP blast from even 2 or 3 nuclear blasts to take out the whole U.S. because they said most of our communications and electrical equipment are hardened against that. And the experts, like over at the Federation of American Scientists, say that if there is a nationwide blackout, it will have been done on purpose by the U.S. government through sabotage.
Wow. Yeah. And Gossifer, or Gossifer, that hacker, he was saying those emails that he hacked into from the elite, they're saying that Chicago is one of the cities that they were talking about nuking.
Yeah, that's been out there for years. Yeah, that comes up repeatedly. Yeah, especially in the movies and TV shows like The Simpsons. They had an episode of that. Long before the 911 thing. They had an episode
really?
where,
Chicago, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yep.
If anyone ever sees the movie Locke with Tom Hardy,
Okay.
there's predictive programming in that, I believe, because it's a horrible movie. The whole movie is him just driving in his car in London.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah. Nobody saw that.
It's horrible. But in that movie, I believe that he's speaking in code, because you know what he does in that movie? He's a construction manager building a high-rise building in Chicago, and he's responsible for laying the foundation and pouring the concrete. And there's a lot of coded message, I believe, in my opinion. There's a lot of coded messages because he goes, it's going to be nuclear, it's going to be this, and he starts talking about how much concrete and how many trucks to use. So I was wondering if that, because his name is Ivan Locke. Ivan, blame the Russians. Locke, it's a lock.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
Well, what was that movie a number of years ago with Jake Gyllenhaal? Remember where he was like a U.S. soldier?
Oh, yeah, Source Code. Source Code,
yeah.
Great movie, yeah.
Yeah.
That was also Chicago, where he was dead, or they had his body. That was a weird movie where...
Yeah, they had jacked him in to a simulated reality, but actually he was going back in time, which was weird, yeah.
In his mind, yeah.
Yeah.
And they thought it was an aberration. They thought it was only in his mind or something, right? But he proved that no, he really was, because he ordered a pizza and delivered it. Yeah, so he really did go back in time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, another city that comes up on their little nuke list for the elite is Denver too, right here where I'm at.
I wouldn't worry about Denver too much.
Yeah.
Just because, like the CIA moved their domestic headquarters there, 3 years ago? Everybody knows it's the backup capital in the United States. If anything happens in DC.
Atlanta and Denver, yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much stuff in Colorado. I mean, man. I mean,
I bump into it all the time, yeah.
I mean, you got the Springs, you got the Air Force Academy, you got NCAR, you got UCAR, you got the Bureau of Standards and Technology. Heck, the atomic clock is literally 3 miles down the road from here. And lots and lots of stuff. NOAA is here. That's 2 miles away.
Well,
I'm right.
Did you guys see that? It's a movie, but it looks like a documentary, or that it's real. It's a real it was from the 80s, Special Bulletin. Yeah, that's.
How are you old enough to remember that movie?
Dude, that movie, when I was a kid and I saw it, scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, that was Charleston they blew up.
Yeah, South Carolina, Charleston. Yeah.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember seeing that.
Those were homegrown terrorists, or people that made a bomb on their own.
Yeah, domestic terrorism, which really didn't even exist back in the 80s.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well,
yeah.
Don't you find it interesting that that idiot senator keeps mentioning, Graham mentioning, they're going to blow up Charleston, and it's like people are saying now.
And that was right around the time where those nukes went missing from Minot Air Force Base, and they were flown illegally. And then in Texas, Alex Jones broke this that a convoy of trucks went there to grab 2 or 3 nuclear bombs, and they weren't supposed to be there, but they were, and they took them. And the truck drivers, the people were asking, "Where are you taking these?" And he goes, "Look, I don't know what's going on, but we're taking them to South Carolina."
Yeah, that was the decommissioning facility out there, Panamex or Panelex facility out there in Texas. And there was little teeny blurbs in the mainstream media, but it was just that there was some kind of confusion or mix-up at the plant, and then that's all they said. But, that thing in South Carolina, you do know that a B-52 lost 2 nuclear weapons off the coast back in the 60s. Accidentally dropped them into the water, and they still can't find them to this day.
That's right.
2 of them. Yeah. I've got
they recovered one. They recovered one, right?
I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and look. I've got the documents called Broken Arrow from the U.S. Air Force. You can download it from their website. And it's a big, thick, 150-page document that documents all the nukes that they lost.
What was it called? Goldsboro, North Carolina, or Goldsboro, South Carolina? Was that the town? And they went into the swamp,
that.
Right?
Yeah, they went into the swamp, yeah.
Yeah. Jeez Louise.
And, and that's not the only nukes they've lost. They had this idiot fly over Colorado here back in the 90s in an A-10, and he had a live nuclear weapon on, and he flew around Denver here and then took off to the southwest, and supposedly he crashed in the mountains. But when the Air Force got up there and the NTSB got up there, it was an old A-10 from the 70s that had crashed and had a different serial number, and people in Mexico saw him fly straight through Mexico out over the Pacific, and he had a live nuclear weapon. That guy disappeared without a trace.
Wow, that's a new story. I haven't heard that one.
Oh,
what are you saying? You're saying that he disappeared with an A-10 and a nuke?
Yeah.
Could have been infecting.
Yeah, he could have been. That was the theory, because even the NTSB argued with the Air Force and said, "Hey, this is not the same A-10, and this A-10's not even armed. If he had a nuclear weapon, where to go?" And then pretty soon the Air Force changed their story and said, "Well, the aircraft must have left U.S. airspace," and that's all the Air Force would say after that. They wouldn't say anything more.
That would be a good cover story, because if you were going to sell it, I mean, you know how much nukes go for on the open market. That'd be the way to do it. And of course, you would never want to admit that he actually did defect or ditch the plane and, let somebody recover it. That would have been an interesting movie. Would have loved that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. But they've lost lots of nuclear weapons. They've lost them in Europe off of fighter jets. They've lost them off of B-52s. They've had B-52s crash up there in Iceland. They had a B-52 go down, auger right into the ground. And for some strange reason, they were never able to find the nukes on that B-52 either when it crashed. And that was in 1978 that thing crashed.
Hey, hold on. Let me just, if anyone wants to call in and ask any questions, call in please at 716-745-4266 to ask Mark or William Zabel a question. Mark Sargent and our guest William Zabel. That's 716-745-4266. And I'm going to check the chat room to see if, because I have not been in there.
And I don't care what kind of questions they ask me. If they want to know what my favorite cookie flavor is, I will answer it. And the answer is chocolate chip.
Chocolate chip. That's good. Yeah,
well, because I put at the end of some of my stuff, I say, because people said, "Oh, can I send you anything?" And I go, "Well, I'm not selling anything, but you can send me cookies." And so people have started sending me cookies, and some were nervous about sending me homemade. So I say, well, send me store-bought. So I've gotten Oreos and Nutter Butters and
really?
Yeah, I got some. Yeah, and I got a package from France the other day, some Saint Michel cookies from, like some coffee cookies, that people had sent me, and I thought that was pretty good.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, if anyone in the chat room has any questions, I'm looking at the chat room. I apologize, guys, that I wasn't in the chat room. Tonight's show has kind of gone away from me.
No worries.
There you go. Okay. Okay. Have you guys been looking, into all these psyops? Like, okay, did you see the Texas flooding one?
Yeah. What?
Okay, now a prom queen supposedly died. Now,
Right.
I call BS on this story. I sent you that thing, right?
Yep.
Now,
you did.
this one of the victims supposedly was a prom queen. Her last name was Ramirez, and she just died. And then they're interviewing her brother, and her brother's all smiles and going, "We loved her." And then they cut to the father, and he's talking, saying, and she called me up and said, "Daddy, what do I do?" And I said, and then they cut to and that's all. That story is so fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The question I have is, why are they doing these kind of stories? Why are they faking nonsense stories?
You want to jump in, William, or you want me to?
Yeah.
I'd like to know because with all the real tragedies out there, I mean, what the hell, man?
Go ahead.
Good.
From what I have seen, that there are a lot of real problems in America, a lot of tragedies, that kind of thing. But for some reason, they've got this attitude that they don't want real events to make the mainstream media. They want these events that they can control. And it seems to me like the reason they're creating these events is so that they can keep people moving in a certain direction. Because if you look at real events that happen, whether it's massive car pileups or it's, a real shooting by a cop, it creates questions that they don't want to answer. Like if you see a multi-car pileup on a highway that was not maintained, you're going to throw a fit about, where's all our money going? Why are highways not fixed? If you see a real shooting by a cop where, the cop really was out of control and it can be proven, then everybody's going to demand it. But what happens with these arranged events is that eventually they're found out as being non-real. And I think, one, they want to push people in a certain direction, and two, I think what they're trying to do is create so much distrust in both the government and the media that the American public won't know what is real and what's not. And that's a typical psyop in itself right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, hold on. I just want to say one thing, okay?
Sure.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York, CJ Mars Radio. I'm your host, Mike Gray, and this is Parley. Now, Mark, what do you have to say?
About regional operations, regional.
Yeah. I mean,
psyops?
what do you think's going on? I mean, William, by the way, that was great what you just said.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
For me, it comes down, and I agree with everything he said. But for me, it also comes down to a couple other components. One is for lack of a better word, homogenization of the news media. And if anyone wants to find some great stuff on that, and I'm sure you both have seen it, and I don't know if Letterman was the first guy to break it or if it was
Conan O'Brien. Yeah, remember?
Oh, yeah, Conan O'Brien.
They go, it's okay, you can, and they were saying the same thing.
Yeah. Spring, spring still has a little, the rabbit still has a little spring in its step, and how that news, even the local news, where we think it's like, okay, maybe only the national news is fabricated and rehearsed and scripted. But no, for a number of years now, it's bled down to the local stations, to where the local stations just grab whatever it is off the AP wire and they run it verbatim. That's the scary part. The only local
it reminds me of radio stations. They will pay a service. These local radio stations, they'll pay like for jokes.
Yeah.
So this way, all the different radio stations throughout the country have the same jokes, but they don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and
that's
kind of goofs.
Well, if Conan hadn't had the resources to do such a great compilation, nobody would have known that. The fact that he got away with it was pretty impressive.
Well, he's done it a couple times, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm wondering if some of the people at the higher end, excuse me, were watching that and just groaning, going, "Oh God, what have you done?" Because yeah, it makes you wonder what local news, because some of those stations, were not very big, and so it's like, okay, is there any legitimate local news other than, say, a car crash? Or a cat in a tree, or the tree falling down. The other thing is, of course, ratings, and that is some news stories, I believe, from a local standpoint or even a national standpoint, especially because there's been such a lack of news lately, other than the jailbreak thing, which may or may not be real.
That's bull crap. I call bull
Exactly.
crap on that.
Yeah,
There's no way. In fact, I fit through a 2-foot pipe.
Yeah. We're gonna do the whole Shawshank thing. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Like a flooding story, there's nothing fun about a flood story at all. However, you throw in a homecoming queen or a prom queen, the old saying, and I don't want to diminish any women that might be listening here, but pretty girls get on TV. And that is because she was cute, right? I don't remember her picture.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And the mother was a fox, man.
Yeah, there you go.
There's no way that woman had like a couple kids.
Yeah, if it was if it was an average person or a handicapped person, maybe you might be able to spin it, but yeah, putting her on there, absolutely jazzes up the story. People automatically relate to it. It's a great boost. Do I believe it? No, of course not.
But again, just like with the no tears, and the brother was laughing,
That's always that's always
exactly. Do you know that in the two cops getting assassinated, there was laughing at the funeral?
Ugh.
Okay?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and it's like I told my buddy Frank, he's a cop. I'm like, Frank, this is a hoax. This is all staged. And also the Ebola thing, that was all baloney. All those Ebola victims, there were no Ebola victims in this country.
Well, yeah.
No.
People actually, there were some mainstream people that made fun of that. I think Jon Stewart and some of the other people on that channel on the comedy, where they were saying, it was Ebola, and then all of a sudden it just wasn't a topic anymore. And I'm going, where does that happen?
And I think I don't want to get too much into these sides, but the Trayvon Martin thing, that whole trial. Now I'm pretty sure that kid got killed, but I think the Trayvon Martin thing, the Mike Brown thing, the Garrison thing, the two cops getting assassinated, and I think the Freddie Gray thing. Did you see the Freddie Gray's sister? Freddie Gray has a twin sister named Frederica.
I did not know that.
I did not know that either.
Yeah, and the next day she's with the mayor of Baltimore, who incidentally said, "We're going to give everyone just enough space to destroy," and then she denies saying it.
Yeah.
You didn't see that?
No, I did.
I did. Yeah. And then Frederica, his sister, the next day, after his death, she gets up there and she's smiling and laughing, smirking.
Wow,
his
awful.
twin sister, Frederica. I mean, you can't make this up. It's almost like they got to be smoking weed when they're writing this stuff. Like, oh yeah, we're going to do this, and
Yeah, they don't. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me interject something here that might give us an idea about these psyops. Back in the day when I went to film school and everything in the late 90s, I had two acting coaches that had come from L.A. They had worked on the TV show Cops. They worked on a lot of the other, emergency 911 type shows. And we got into a discussion about them, and I said, well, were you guys running the camera, or did you produce them? And they said, no, we were actors. And I'm like, wait a minute, what do you mean you were actors? Those are real shows. And they go, oh, no, they're not real. They're all fake. They said the first couple of episodes of Cops was real, and they got sued by the defendants, and it went all the way to the federal courts, and the federal courts ruled that we could no longer tape real crime scenes, so we've been faking them ever since. Well, I found out a few years ago, this was after the Virginia Tech thing, I was talking to the buddy of mine who was the head acting coach, and he admitted him and his buddy created crisis actors here in Denver, and that they send crisis actors all over the United States to portray criminals and victims.
Wow.
Wow.
So what's real? That you have to ask yourself, well, I can spot it now when it's a bullcrap story because I see when they're smiling, you know. It's a tragic event, someone dies, and they're acting hinky, you know. They you know, it's nothing is genuine. There's duping delight, so I can kind of spot it, you know. But they're even psyoping stuff that's so small and trivial. You got to wonder. It kind of reminds me of the book 1984, when they're confessing the crimes that they didn't commit.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I think what they're doing is that it's kind of like anything else involving government. They've got so much power and that they can do this that they lose control of it, and it just starts running amok and almost becomes like a operation unto itself where they just can't control it anymore.
But then, you know, the scary thing is that are there real trials going on? Like the Boston bombing, that whole thing is fake. But is the Boston bombing trial even real? And is the prosecutor and the defense? You see what I'm saying? Do you see how dangerous this gets?
Yeah, probably not. Why? Well, why would you stop if you're gonna fake one thing, part of it, you got to fake the whole thing.
Yeah.
You may not let.
Now you remember in the Trayvon Martin thing when the judge asks Zimmerman, "Do you have a statement?" And he says, "Ask my lawyer." And then the lawyers say, "We're not ready for a statement." She goes, "I'm not asking you. I'm talking to him." Remember that?
I don't.
The judge was wanting Zimmerman to give a statement when he wasn't prepared, and his lawyer saying, "Well, we speak for him. We represent him." And she completely dismissed his lawyers, both of them, Mark Moreau and the other guy. You know.
Yeah.
Now it's possible that maybe the judge and maybe even the jury thinks that this is real, but maybe the DA and the cops and the defense are faking it. But I have a hard time believing that a judge would allow this to go on in a courtroom.
Yeah. Yeah, unless it was just kind of whispered to him. Because, unfortunately, for some of these ops, you have to have some sort of air of legitimacy. You've got to have some enthusiastic people that aren't in the loops just so they can act naturally. And
I would think so. Yeah. Interesting that Mark O'Mara, as soon as he's done with that trial, he becomes a CNN spokesperson.
Well, there's that.
You know.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, this reminds me of an old episode of the TV show Jag. I don't know if you remember it from the 90s. But they had a case where a guy who was a Marine shot a Muslim terrorist, and the Muslim terrorist had on a bulletproof vest, and he was killed, but they wanted the trial to go forward as though the guy really was killed. Remember that episode?
I don't,
I didn't watch that show.
But, yeah, if you're going to go down that road, why don't you bring up the Bin Laden thing?
Yeah.
Was he dead? Was he dead? How long has he been dead? And how, why ever.
It's kind of funny because it reminds me of Saddam Hussein, when Saddam Hussein's wife went in to see him in jail, she said, "That's not my husband." She walked at her and said, "That's not my husband." And who better than her would know?
Yeah.
So then the question is, did they really hang that guy, whoever he was?
Well, you wouldn't. If you thought you could, if he gave up the goods and said, "Look, I can give you some long-term intel if you set me up with some cool digs," I could see where they'd milk that. I mean, Lord knows he'd have so much stuff he could give him. He would be extremely valuable in the long term, as long as you kept him hidden. Made sure he didn't look exactly the same, and if he had to live on a base, I'm sure you could make him comfortable, but.
Yeah.
It's easier, and then you could kill two birds with one stone, because you could still kill him. You could still, tell the public that he died, but because the public wouldn't want you to use him. I mean, the public still has adverse reactions to the Nazi scientists after World War II.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this way, that's a win-win. I'm liking that.
Right. Wow. What any other topics you guys want to touch? There's no calls. Hold on, let me just put out the number. Anyone wants to call, 716-745-4266. William, anything?
Yeah, there was, they had this talk about the chemtrails, and, that's becoming more and more turbulent, even in the mainstream media starting to pick up on this, about weather control. But I heard something at the Federation of American Scientists where one of the guys was saying that he thought, based on what he had seen through classified documents, that what they were trying to do is purposely block out the sun. And somebody in their forum said, well, why in the world would they want to do that? And he says, maybe because global warming is really real. Maybe the sun is getting so hot that they have to try and block it out. And I wonder if any of you guys had heard that.
Oh, I don't believe that. I don't believe that the sun is getting too hot. I think maybe the sun is changing colors. But I'll tell you why I think they want to block out the sun. If you ever read Tolkien, remember, no one can figure out what they're trying to do, the machines that they're building?
Yeah.
But Gollum keeps telling everybody that he wants to cover the world in darkness. Maybe what they were trying to do was do something to block out the sun.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe.
it could.
Because the orcs, all the bad creatures, couldn't come out in the day, could they? That's why they were, like the orcs.
Yeah.
They can only fight at night.
I have had the chemtrail thing posed to me so many times in the last 3 or 4 months and I try to tell people, as I go, look, whatever is happening is obviously us because, we know the planes that are doing it. We know the chemical companies that are doing it. But it seems to be functioning on multiple levels because, some people say, well, it's a poison. Well, if it's a poison, that's a long-term poison because people aren't, dropping in the fields. If it's a genetic thing, if it's if they're waiting for some sort of hybrid technology, then that's taking a while. Is it tied to Morgellons? If I'm pronouncing that right?
Morgellons disease.
Morgellons disease, which is
like a nanites or something.
Yeah, that's a strange little wiry thing, isn't it? I mean, it could be tied to that. Is it obscuring something? Yeah, maybe. Or it could be, it could be, all of the above. But whatever it is, it's consistent and it's been getting a lot worse. A lot more people are noticing it. The mainstream can't ignore that forever.
A lot of people think that also what it's for is to put holograms in the sky, because
as part of Project Bluebeam.
Yeah. If you put enough particles in the sky, it would make the holograms look more real.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're going to do that, then are you doing that because on a regular basis because you don't never know this could be the day that you're going to do the big hologram thing? Yeah, maybe.
And when you hear all those Earth sounds, those Earth. Someone reminded me, it sounds like the trumpets in Revelations.
Nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, here's another idea. If you ever watched the movie Crazies with Timothy Oliphant, maybe they're doing some type of mind control from the air. I mean, look at since chemtrails began in the late 80s, early 90s, look at the kind of strange behavior that we've seen from people, not anything big like in the movies, but just this slight alteration in people's beliefs and their mannerisms and things like that. Maybe that's what they're doing too.
Or I'll even throw one more at you. Could it be two-part epoxy, like what they did in the first Christian Bale Batman, where they put in the water supply, and then once it became an aerosol form, then it changed. The compound changed. What if you introduced it as an aerosol compound, but then you introduced a secondary one on top of it? But I get to your point, and that is, maybe people's attitudes are changing slowly over time because you wouldn't want to do it quickly anyway. And I don't know when the first reports. That'd be an interesting thing to look up when the first reports of chemtrails were. But they go back.
It's funny that remember they used to put lead in gasoline. Why? They intentionally put lead in gasoline, right?
Right.
Why would you do that? It was making people go crazy. People used to, at the drop of a dime, like road rage and all that stuff. And then it was, I remember when I was a kid, when we drove from New Jersey to Florida.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was like smog everywhere. And then they got rid of that. You know, they made the cars more efficient and better, and then it went away.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
Well-
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, in modern automobiles, they've proven that they don't need lead gas to use high compression in high performance cars. For instance, my 93 Trans Am is 10-to-1 compression on very low grade unleaded gas. I can drive it without pinging. I can get that thing up to 150 miles an hour without pinging it. So their lie about, well, we have to make the cars all crappy low compression engines because of lead. They either weren't doing very good research or they knew the truth, because they don't need
No,
lead
all
gas
they do
nowadays.
is lie. All they do
Yeah.
is lie, lie, lie. If they
Yeah.
tell you up, just go down, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's all they can do is lie, you know? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Agreed. Does anybody even serve leaded gas anymore?
It's
Not
illegal,
that I
isn't
know
it?
of. I think it
it's
is,
illegal. Yeah. Unleaded only, yeah. But I'm glad to see that Monsanto is changing its name.
They're rebranding
Yes.
to
Yes.
what?
Because they have to, because Monsanto is known as the most
No,
hated
not
company on the planet.
not why, but to what? Do you know what they're changing it to?
Oh, Sargento or I don't know. I don't remember.
I should look.
I don't
that
know
up
what they're
real
going to
fast.
change. You know.
Well,
Yeah.
in Europe, they've got a worse reputation, Monsanto does, than the CIA now.
Yeah.
I mean, they get death threats. Their offices do over there all the time. People threatening to blow up their facilities and everything. People have just had it with them over there.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Borrowing. Yeah, I'm just looking at the story right now. Borrowing tactic of Philip Morris, agrochemical giant, tried to change name. Tried to. I don't know if they've gotten away with it yet, though. Not going over.
They're not going to get away with it because people are going to be all over them.
Yeah.
You know. It's incredible that, all people in India and they're just banned. In France, they're banned. In India's banning. I think even China is saying, we're not going to take your crap.
Yep.
You know.
Oh yeah. So I'm sorry. So what they were doing was, you were right there on the name, by the way, Michael. Where they're merging. How they're doing is they're merging with a rival, Syngenta.
Yes.
Out of Switzerland. And if they merge, they're going to take Syngenta's name. They're going to try it anyway.
Good. They'll poison that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Interesting. I did not know that.
No, not going to fool us. Not
No.
going to fool us.
Nope.
You know.
No.
But yeah, the have you guys looked? Like, I've been really looking at one of my favorite books is Lord of the Rings. Even though I've never read them, I've listened to the audiobooks. The movies, I love the movies, but
yeah.
There's that whole backstory of creation that I find incredible.
Yeah.
In Lord of the Rings, you guys should really look that up.
Yeah. There's a deeper book. I've actually got a copy, but it's complex enough that I just have not dug into it, called the Silmarillion.
That's it. Yes. That's the book.
Yeah.
The Silmarillion talks about Iluvatar. Iluvatar was, I guess, a spirit or a consciousness that created another group of spirits you might call angels, called the Einhorn. And the Einhorn all started singing. And the music created, they all started singing it, but there was one Einhorn called Melkor who was singing out of tune, and he was kind of a jerk. Einhorn, right?
Yeah.
So then they were singing, but Melkor, he was singing out of tune, and he wanted to disrupt or change what Iluvatar wanted, the god. Iluvatar was like the first creator.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was singing out of chord or in discord. And then all the singing, they showed the Einhorn what the singing had created, a vision. All the creation, and the Einhorn were like, wow, look at that. So a deal was struck. Listen to this. This is pretty interesting.
Okay.
That all the Einhorn, and I guess Iluvatar, would go into this creation and live it out.
What?
Whoa.
Yeah. Listen, this is in the similar, that They would actually go into the creation and live it out. And the deal was they couldn't leave till it was over. They had to stay. Because in the song, the vibration, they saw the creation of man and dwarves and elves and all the animals and the plant lives and the Ents and the dragons and even the evil side of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds kind of crazy, like a screenplay in a book that I've been working on. Basically, it deals with, you've heard the term the Nephilim from the Old Testament of the Bible.
Of course.
Right, yeah. The fallen.
And basically what it is that angels, certain angels led by Lucifer, this is how we started out the screenplay, was that he wanted to come down here and become a physical being because he saw that God created these women and that him and his brothers lusted after these women. And God said, go, but if you go, you stay, and you will stay till Judgment Day down there. And that's why when you said that about these in-course where they went into this creation and were told they had to stay there, that's what popped it off, and that's how we started out. And basically the Nephilim were the offspring of human females and these fallen angels, is what it turned out to be.
Interesting.
So when I heard you talking about the Lord of the Rings and that thing and how these creatures had to stay in this creation, it reminded me of the screenplay we put together and hopefully the book will get finished.
Right, and also in the what is it called? The Similarian?
Similar, yeah.
The first light, or the first, were not the sun and the moon. It was two trees that they had created. Two trees. And then Melkor got a giant spider to go and kill the trees and shut the light. And then there was darkness in the land. And then another Valar created the sun and the moon to bring light to Middle Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a heady book.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
There's a reason why it's not been made into a movie yet, or they're even talking about it, because it's all over the place, and it is tough to relate to even the diehard fans. There's a huge religious overtones in that thing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It is a cool book, though.
Yeah. But yeah, it is heady. Yeah.
Oh, you're listening to it on tape?
They're all on YouTube on tape, but the synopsis is on this thing called I'll send it to you. It's called Civilization X, and all the videos that they made, they're real short. They're like 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah. They're just synopsises, Mm-hmm. But I've been listening to those to get this, because I'd never heard of the Similarian before.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know.
I remember when I was in my 20s, and I would see these young kids carrying these heavy books, and I was like, whoa, what is that, And it was like, Lord of the Rings. I opened it up and looked. I'm like, this is like reading the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I came late to the game. I did not know much. There was a D&D group in my high school, and they were real quiet and closed off, and I didn't even know really much about Lord of the Rings until I was I think almost 30.
Would you say that realistically, Tolkien started really the Dungeons and Dragons? Because
he started.
I always thought Gary Gygax created all that, but really Gary Gygax just stole everything out of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Lord of the Rings started so much stuff. In fact, there's some websites dedicated to not just medieval science fiction or medieval fantasy, but huge swaths of science fiction were taken directly. I mean, I'll just throw one out. Return of the King, the third book, and George Lucas decided to put a nod to that and say, Return of the Jedi, really? That's what you're going to do? And most people don't get it. They didn't understand what that was from. It's like, oh, that's a cool title. No, it's a Lord of the Rings title is what it is. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, on a side note, because we were talking about Jade Helm and stuff that may be going down, because, the people have been throwing me numbers, and I think you guys have probably both heard, the September 23rd.
September 23rd, yeah.
Type thing. What's weird is In the stuff that I've been doing, I've been talking to so many people lately, and I've been talking to a number of people that have claimed, and I'm not disputing them, that they've had some sort of psychic abilities. None of these people know each other, and at least 5 of them, both men and women, have contacted me, various reasons. And when we get on the topic of what may be happening this fall, it's weird because they all pretty much say the same thing, and that is they don't know
about the drop.
Yeah, they said something's coming. They go, but it's almost like it's got a cloud, like it's like fog, and they can't figure out its shape because they say, and I throw out stuff. I go, well, does that have to do with Jade Helm? Does it have to do with an atomic weapon event? Does it have to do with this? And they're going, they get stumped, and it's really, really strange to watch all these people say this, even though they don't know each other. And don't know that all of them are talking to me. They're all saying that same sort of thing, and they all have different backgrounds. And I'm not sure what to make of it either. Even to the point where that, not that I like to quote him that much, but that Alex Jones thing that he did, what was it, a week ago or 10 days ago, where he comes on and says, look, that's the first time I've seen him, the man short for words. Where he comes on, he goes, look, because normally he'd love to nail down something, right? He'd love to say, this is what's coming and here's what it's going to be and rah, 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 rah. And he was like, look, he goes, something's coming. He goes, I don't know what it is. And he wouldn't even take a stab at it. And that really surprised me. It's like, wow, if anyone could speculate, that man can.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And he wouldn't. And I was going, what has tied his tongue? Not deliberately, but it's almost like it's hidden. That's it's so wide, it's so much multifaceted, like looking at trying to describe an octopus from various sides. You can't quite put your finger on it, but we hear this stuff all the time over the especially
did you hear that they said that supposedly an asteroid is going to hit Puerto Rico and
the asteroid thing. I'm sorry, I forgot to even bring that up. Yeah, the asteroid thing has been thrown into it too, and and heck, Planet X has been thrown back into it.
Right. Yeah.
Even though we're 3 years past that thing, how's that get dragged back in? Just put a new dust jacket on it, I guess. But yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of it. But here's my point: is this? It's strange to me because even though I've heard this stuff, and you guys have too, for the last 10 years, we've heard something's coming, something. I've heard that Charleston should have been blown up, 6 times over by now, But this one, it's even though it feels like the cat in the closet bit, where in the horror movie, the cat, you open the closet door just a bit, the cat jumps out, everybody gets scared. But there's only so many cats you can see jump out of the closet before you're going, oh, it's gonna be another cat. Don't even worry about what's opening the door. But this one still feels a little funny, a little different. And I'm not sure what, and of course the knee-jerk reaction from so many people is, well, it's got to be Jade Helm. It's got to be Jade Helm. Because when's that operation?
It already technically started, I guess, or it doesn't start. It starts this month, and it ends September 20. When, the 15th?
Yeah,
something like that. So it should be
after 9/11.
Oh, right. But it's not a special. It's not a special anniversary for 9/11 this year, right? It's only the 20 or the 14th, whatever it is. But yeah, so Jade Helm wraps up, but other than that, I don't know. It just feels weird. But yeah, if it was going to happen, but the thing is, the Jade Helm stuff is mostly out west, where we are, where William and I are, right? The Jade Helm thing really isn't.
Well, they did a thing in Michigan, if you remember here last week. They shot off some live rounds and flashbangs and stuff like that. They did that in Michigan last week. Okay. But they have never said that it was part of Jade Helm. They won't answer to that.
Maybe they know there's an invasion from Mexico. I don't know, man. I just don't.
Well, here's another idea that I thought of, and I watched a movie that I've watched a couple of times now. I like the music of it, and it's something to consider. If you guys know about the movie Pacific Rim,
of course, yeah.
What if Jade Helm is not in itself an operation to go after the American public? What if these idiots have been screwing around in the supernatural realm for so long with the old remote viewing and with the psychic crap that the Russians and the Americans have been doing. What if these idiots have opened up some kind of doorway and they know they're about to get their butts stomped from something not of this earth? What if they, not even aliens, but, interdimensional? What if they know there's something coming? They're not really sure what, but they just know it's not the Russians or the Chinese.
I like that. So I'll combine another movie with you if you're going to do that one. Think of The Mist, with,
yes.
based on the Stephen King book with Thomas Jane, where they opened up a dimensional portal, which of course you didn't see in that movie. But yeah, some real horrible stuff started coming through, and the military was on its heels for a while. They ended up winning in the end, but it got pretty dicey. Yeah, I could see that. And people,
that should be fun.
Yeah, wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
The other part was, and again, we've talked about it before, but it hasn't been up, in the last 3 weeks, and that is the CERN thing. Everyone was really gung ho on the CERN thing. They did some tests. The plane went down. They said, in fact, what was that headline that came out today? The Germans said, "Oh yeah, doctors said he shouldn't have been flying." It's like, why are you even bringing this story up? Well, probably because of the class action lawsuit, but the CERN thing, lots of people were saying it's got to be a doorway issue. It's got to be a gateway. And if the gateway was opened, where would it open? It doesn't necessarily have to open there. They could, depending on how they use it, lens it, they could open it some other place. But yeah, maybe that's what they're waiting for. Could be. Be. But yeah, I like anything, there's certain reasons, and you don't need that many, but there's certain reason you would have foreign troops, because there's not that many that are here. It's not like you can take out all the major cities with, how many troops did they say they had? Less than 50,000, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think they're talking 5,000, I think is what they're talking.
Yeah, not many. So,
yeah.
but you could use them, in a situation where, again, yeah, if you had to round up people, or if let's say there was a part of the population that reacted badly to a medical thing. Or, again, most of the time though, it's because you have to round up citizens that aren't your own, and you don't want sympathizers. Like anything. Right. That's always been the concern. I mean, yeah, you can say, oh yeah, we can turn the army, we can turn the National Guard against our own people. But there's that chance that you don't want to take it, and that is, well, what if all of a sudden you recognize, when you're going through the line of American citizens, that you run into your cousin or your nephew or somebody, special treatment, and then the whole thing starts to fall apart. And so that's really the only reason I can ever see foreign troops being used, and that is for detaining without emotional attachment. And of course, if you want to get back into the FEMA camp thing, which those things.
So then the question becomes, I mean, with the American people are armed. I mean, a lot of people have guns.
A lot.
I mean, there's
huge amount.
And the thing is this: most people that own guns have more than one.
Yeah,
true.
Most gun owners, the majority of gun owners, own, I would say, 3 to 5 weapons, 3 to 5 guns.
Yeah.
Especially hunters. So that means that one hunter is going to divvy out those rifles to his friends and family.
Yep.
He's not just going to take his one rifle and gun and go out. He's going to go, oh, come on, boys. Come here. Here you go. You take this one. You take this one.
Yeah. Well, maybe what they're doing, maybe we need to look at it from the other point of view. Maybe they're not going after gun owners. I mean, there's certain segments of the federal government that would like to do that, like the FBI and ATF, but maybe we have so many people here illegally, people here on H-1B visas that just don't want to assimilate into our society, and they know Americans are starting to, come back. They're starting to fight back against that. Maybe they see that they're going to have to fight the people they've been letting come into this country for decades.
Yeah, but they've been letting them in.
Well, certain segments of the government have.
I was talking to my friend today about, I saw on this thing, the Chinese are wanting to build another canal in Nicaragua instead of Panama. There's the Panama Canal. They want to build an even bigger canal in Nicaragua, going through Nicaragua. And there's an enormous freshwater lake that if they did that, it would pretty much, destroy that freshwater lake. That's where a lot of Nicaraguans get their water. So I'm wondering if that's the reason why they're letting all the Nicaraguans into this country.
Yeah.
Oh, it's sort of like a pass. It's like,
kind of like
we know.
saying, okay, yeah, they're going to destroy that fresh water, and okay, the Nicaraguans will come here, because the Mexicans, the one thing about the Mexicans, they won't let foreigners in their country.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh wait, I didn't know that. Mexico's not big on immigration from the South.
Oh my God, no! If you are non-Mexican and they catch you sneaking into their country
You're
and living there, yeah, they are fiercely nationalistic. Yeah,
I did not know this.
Oh yeah.
Little bit hypocritical, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
I say that, but at the same time, I joke with people that make fun because they say, there's a reason why they call it New Mexico, and that's because, well, it was their Mexico. So, but that's
right.
Just
And I get that,
Yeah. But, wars happen.
I mean, do you guys hear that there are Russian troops in the United States? Does that make any sense that there are Russian troops in the United States when we're having all this hostility? This is how I know it's baloney, okay?
Okay.
We're supposedly putting NATO is surrounding Russia with NATO bases, right?
Supposedly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yet they're still on the supposed space station. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I believe, and you can jump in if you want, William. I believe that, and I the more research I do, the more I believe this, that Russia and America have been secret brothers since the beginning. And that if they're at the highest level, I mean, yeah, we our troops will, say some things here and there, and we'll jockey around with some fighter planes here and there. But I think at the highest level, we are each of us are the other's secret weapon. And that is, if things got too dicey, and I'm not necessarily calling out the Chinese on this one, but you would be hard pressed if China was beaten up on either one of them, that one of us wouldn't come to their aid, because we've done that through time, and and not just I'll throw this one story out, and Michael, you probably know this story, or maybe you don't, but it's one of my favorites. It's one of those little known things in history, and that is. The Civil War, everybody knows that, it was the South versus the North, but most people don't know, and you can look this up. This part is very, just like in Vietnam, the British had a huge stake in this. For the South, they had advisors, all the weapons, all the ships. In fact, you want to have a fun thing, look up the CSS Alabama, which is a Confederate sloop of war built in Great Britain, trained by Great Britons. In fact, they left the cook from this, and it sunk a whole bunch of Union ships. Anyway, the point is that, the North defeated the South, and everyone knows that it was never going to be any different because the North had more resources. But if the British had been involved, it would have been a completely different story. If you had the British Navy and the South versus the North, it wouldn't have been a 5-year war. It would have been much longer, and there's a chance the North would have lost. So the story goes, and it's short, the story goes is that Lincoln, as a last-ditch effort, sent a note to the Tsar of Russia. I don't know if it was Nicholas at the time. And Lincoln was well respected by other leaders around the world. Even though he was technically a failed politician here and then beloved later, all the other leaders of the world really dug this guy. And the Tsar got this letter from Lincoln, and he says in front of his chiefs of staff, unopened, seal still on it. He goes, just so you know, before I open this thing, we're going to do anything he asks. And when he opens it, it was a simple request, and it said, keep the British out of this. And so, Russia contacted Great Britain and said, look, if your Navy gets involved, our Navy gets involved. And then it truly would, it would have been the First World War,
That's
decades.
right. The Russians had their ships, where were they stationed? Outside of San Francisco Bay, or?
Some of them.
Yeah.
It was going to be crazy. And the British at that point gave up. They said, you know what? Fine. Let the South, and basically they left the South hanging out to dry. And that was, and then 5 years later, the South loses. But man, that would have been.
And the British were also involved in Mexico, stirring crap up.
There you go.
Between Mexico and Texas in those territories, yeah.
Now, there was a little price for this for people that say, oh, that story, may not be true. And I go, well, I love that story because there's so much little intrigue involved. But the other one was, there's a price for everything. Of course, you don't get anything for nothing, even though Russia didn't have to fire a shot. And that was, Russia had to be, wanted to get paid for this. So they sold, the United States immediately after the war was over, a giant worthless piece of land that Russia
known
owned.
as Alaska.
Known as Alaska.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they bought it, and only later it's like, oh yeah, there's oil on it. So it's like, hey, it worked out in the end. But yeah, it was a great little thing. I loved it. But anyway, the point was, long way around. I don't believe for a second that Russia and America, we posture a lot, but I think I just can't see us squaring off with them because I think it's just, some chest pounding and deliberately at the top, maybe just to get people. Well, look at them, not to digress, but look at the thing in Syria where, remember, because there was all that stuff that was going on in Syria a couple of years ago. And how they weren't going to let us in, the United States in to inspect weapons of mass destruction or whatever it was. And Russia comes in and says, because remember, Syria and Russia were sort of allied. And Russia says, well, okay, we'll go in and inspect all the weapons of mass destruction, right? Oh, no, we're not going to do anything with your oil fields. No, we're not going to take those over. And America United States immediately said, oh, yeah. Go ahead. Russia can do that. Didn't even think about it, right? And you got to be, if you're the Chinese watching this, you're probably going, oh, yeah, well, it's okay. Because, Russia's going to, hey, wait a minute, what just happened? I just love the whole, the little chess game of politics. Anyway.
Yeah, there's definitely something weird going on.
Yeah.
Well, and who said it years ago that the whole intent was to make a comfortable merger between the U.S. and the Soviet Union?
Yeah.
Yeah, but is that plan still on? Is that plan still on, or are they going to try that?
You can't do it without a massive shakeup. I mean, an event has to happen. Basically, let's put it this way, it wouldn't be just Russia and America at that point. It would be.
But isn't that the Bolsheviks that tried to, and they were just kicked out because now they're not communists anymore in Russia. They're capitalists.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, more or less.
Communism is dead. Now those Bolsheviks, they're coming here. They're trying to turn this country into what the Soviet Union was.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's going to be a little tougher than what they expect, but yeah, they're making a dent, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So.
And you see this new, what is it, the TTP?
What's TTP?
The trade.
Trans-Pacific.
Trans-Pacific. Yeah.
Trans-Pacific Partnership. Yeah.
Right.
Is that new? Yeah,
it's new. And you know what they're trying to do if this thing goes through? Basically, like a country like China would be able to go in to, like, let's say the state of Michigan, buy up an enormous tract of land and put their companies in and bring their own people here and put them in there and work,
That's interesting.
Kind of like what the Japanese did in Manchuria.
Brief me on that one. The Manchuria thing.
Okay, back in the 1920s or 30s, Japan went into China, into the area of Manchuria, and they kind of carved out a niche for themselves in there.
Okay.
And they, established factories and, brought their own people there, and, their people had families, and so it was like not just factories and, companies, but houses and homes.
Basically relocating an entire culture.
Exactly. And then when war broke out, I guess the Civil War between in China, that area was in danger, and then the Japanese military went in and invaded.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to protect the Japanese families and workers. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Weren't they?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. This is how you get a World War situation where everyone is in everyone else's business, and when something goes wrong and happens, you know what I mean? The military gets called in.
Yeah.
Well, you can take that back to Hurricane Katrina. Remember when the Mexican military came in with their big trucks? How they were welcomed into New Orleans. Do you know what their excuse was?
What?
No, what?
Mexican citizens living in New Orleans, which they called, they didn't call me legal aliens. They had their own term for it. That they needed to protect those people, and that FEMA was doing a horrible job, and then that's why they came in there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they were allowed in.
Yeah.
They were allowed in by that mayor. That mayor actually, because FEMA was screwing things up so bad, he was asking for help from any state in the union, any place he could get it. And the Mexican government said because there were undocumented workers, that's a term they used, living in New Orleans, that they would come in, but they needed somebody's permission. And the governor and him both gave permission for them to drive their trucks all the way from Mexico into New Orleans to help.
Well, I'll tell you, that whole thing in itself was a psyop, and I'll tell you why. They had weeks' notice that there was at least a Category 3 hurricane in the Gulf that was going to hit somewhere in the United States, whether it was Texas, Louisiana, or Florida, wherever. It was going to hit somewhere. So they had a week to prepare, and they did nothing. And when it hit, they waited a week. They waited, 5 days to move in? Why would you do that? They intentionally let that thing. Let things get that bad.
Well,
and then
go ahead.
And then you had reporters finding their way. After the storm, reporters like Solidit O'Brien. I watched the whole thing. When she was going in there, they said, "How are you here? How did you make it in here?" And she said, "We drove in." And the people were like, "Well, where the hell's the police? Where's the military? Where's food and where's help?"
Yeah. I actually wrote a little thing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, William.
Oh, that's right.
I wrote a little thing on this in a prepper manual I did some time ago called Empty Shelves, where I believe that too, and that was that it was intentionally delayed because they wanted to observe and see what happened. It was a perfect opportunity to see what happens in a major city with a long-term power outage with no resources.
And I'll tell you something. When they showed the picture of all the school buses that got flooded, because why didn't that mayor? I mean, you mean to tell me you're the mayor of a city like New Orleans, and you don't have any kind of preparation for something like this? To get all the school buses active and start going around neighborhoods, and you know what I mean, bring people to higher ground or get them the hell out of there, because people's excuses, we ain't got no car, we ain't got no vehicle.
Yeah.
Why wasn't martial law declared before? And you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a mess. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry. Go ahead, William.
No, William. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I know because my cousin and her husband lived down there, and they said that the flooding was not that bad. They said the storm had subsided, but what happened was, I believe the Army Corps of Engineers blew the levees. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, Anderson Cooper was standing there, and I've got the news footage, and you can hear this kaboom in the background. And I went back and did some research on the Army Corps of Engineers, and I found out that's not the first time the Army Corps of Engineers got caught doing that. They did it back in I think it was the 1920s, 1927. They blew the levee then because somebody wanted some of that farmland in that area right north of New Orleans. I think there was some land there that they were using that was real valuable. I don't know what it was, if it's farmland or swampland that had natural gas or what. But somebody wanted that land, and there were people living in that area, so they blew the levees then to drive everyone out of there. And that's even on the Army Corps of Engineers website. They even admitted to it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Guess what?
Katrina,
that mayor's going to jail.
I did not know that.
Yeah, did you see that on the news?
No.
He got indicted and
recently?
Yeah, what's his name? Jeez.
Same guy. I think it's the same mayor that was there. The
bald guy.
His last name starts with an N. I'm trying to think.
Negron?
Nagin.
Negron?
Nagin. I think.
Nagin.
Yeah.
Folks, do not write me any letters. It's Nagin or Negron. I don't know.
Yeah, it was Nagin or Nagin. It's Nagen.
Yeah, that's him.
Last name.
That's him. Yeah.
But,
took a shower on Air Force One.
Yeah. Well, do you know that whole area down there that got flooded the worst down in that one section of New Orleans? That's now all casinos and resort type facilities now. They tore down all those homes, wouldn't let those people rebuild or give them money through FEMA to rebuild, and that's all resort areas now. And they bring in, they advertise over in Europe to come into New Orleans and go gambling now.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The Katrina, that whole thing, that was a big inspiration for me when I wrote my prepper manual, because, in fact, it was the main one, because I remember a story watching it, because as everybody knows, the city evacuated. And then the people that came back, of those people, and this is the part, human denial, which just drives me insane, was that 75% of them still wouldn't, put a thing of, buy a thing of food and, extra food and water. Forget about insurance. It's like these people, we're all hanging around the Superdome. We all watched, the footage. It was a mess. It was a nightmare. But they come back and it's like, oh, it'll never happen again, so I don't need to get any bottled water. It's like, man, it just happened to you. And, it was almost like they were thinking, well, lightning won't strike twice.
So, yeah. And what I really got upset about too was people that left their pets.
Yeah, that wasn't good. Yeah.
There was this one black lady, and I think it was with Geraldo Rivera of all people. There was this black lady living in a house with her I guess her husband or older son, and she couldn't walk, and she would be on the floor crawling. She was a heavyset black lady, And they went over in one of those boats, and they said, hey, come on, we're here to get you out of here. She goes, no, I'm not leaving. They're like, look, there's no electricity. This water isn't going to subside for a couple weeks. You can't stay here. You're going to die. And she did not want to leave, but they finally convinced her, and they got her out of there. You didn't see that one with the big lady? Heavy-set lady, and how she was getting around. She didn't have a wheelchair. She was literally like a baby. But even worse, she was like using her arms. She must have had really powerful arms because she was hobbling herself on the floor. That's how she got around.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. There was so many little aspects of it. That's when, by the way, Katrina was the first thing when I found out about local government contingency plans, which a lot of people don't know. They were put in place some years ago, especially when the bulk food stores came out. And that was in situations like that. Most people don't know that, like, there was some of the local governments took over, like Sam's Clubs. I don't know if you got them out where you guys are, like the equivalent of a Costco, where SWAT teams basically went in, cleared out the store. Not cleared. I mean, just cleared it out of people, barricaded the doors, and waited for it to be over. And that was going to be the center in case it was a long-term issue if you had to set up a temporary government. So SWAT teams.
Walmart's. Do you know that Walmarts are disaster relief centers?
I did not know that.
Every Walmart, wherever there's a Walmart, they're a disaster relief center. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that surprises me because technically it's not a bulk food store, but they do have everything. So I mean, it's kind of like like a Target.
And also, from what I understand, that if the government computers go down, Walmart. That's the government's backup computers because they have the mainframe.
Yeah.
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 See, it's interesting that, you ever wonder how the hell did Walmart get so big? The government's got to be behind them. Just like Disney. How did Disney get so big? How come Disney has parks in Tokyo and they had one in France and, where else do they have a Disney? Tokyo, France.
Well, I think that'd be enough besides the two in the United States, and that's just the parks. They fell on time. I think they got some outside investors, and the government wouldn't surprise me because
I'll tell you one funny thing real quick. When I worked at Disney at MGM, one of the animators, because I made friends with an animator, a supervisor, and one of his friends said, "Boy, he goes, it's the weirdest thing." He goes, "I didn't know we had we had animation studios in like Australia. He goes, I didn't know we. He goes, you know, we have Disney animation studios all over the world. And he was scratching his head, going,
Yeah.
Why? Well, they have more than that. They have entire post-production studios all over, so they don't have to send all their footage back to the U.S. for their Disney movies. Like in Australia, they film a lot of Disney movies there and in New Zealand, and they've got post facilities right there, so they can actually bulk put everything together, put it in the DVD packages, put it online, and send it out, so it doesn't have to be sent back to the U.S.
Yeah.
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 But also they could be, you know, what a way to compartmentalize something. If you want to work on a project, you send one aspect of it here, one aspect of it here, and no one knows what the total thing is, you know?
Yeah. Well, there's a very dirty underside to Disney that, you know, we could get into someday.
Oh, yeah, I was about to say how far back you want to go on that one.
Yeah, that could take a while. Yeah.
That's a whole show in itself, yeah.
Yeah, you want to sum it up real quick, though, without doing another show, that great Simpsons line where they made fun, you know, they did a parody of the Disney park, and they were going into, like, the history of Disney thing. And it's like, you know...
the creator of the characters, Itchy and Scratchy, said he loved almost all the children of all the world, meaning not all the children.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, you know, now the animated short, you know, Nazi Superman are our superiors, you know, and it's like, oh, wow. It's like they did not hold back on that one. No. And the thing is, it's like, I mean, honestly, let's be honest here. There was going to be some sympathizers back then. I'll use for Saving Private Ryan from years ago, where remember that great scene where oh no, it wasn't Saving Private Ryan. It was Band of Brothers. Either of you guys watch that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Band of Brothers. Where same production team Steven Spielberg did, where the same team as did of Saving Private Ryan, where they had some German prisoners and they asked one of them if they wanted to smoke, and the guy said in perfect English, yeah, absolutely. And he goes, wait, where are you from? And he goes, Oregon. And he's going, what are you doing here? And it was because before the war started, you know, because there's a lot of German immigrants over here in the United States, they put ads in the papers. They say, look, we're this thing's on. Anyone wants to come over and join the fatherland, let's do it. And, you know, it's one of those hidden little things. Quite a few people went over there. And sympathizers in the States, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm saying this because I'm mostly German.
Somebody told me this, that when World War II got going, and it might have been you, William, I'm not sure, I can't remember, that Disney Studios were the only studios invaded by the U.S. military. They took over studios.
Yeah. Yeah, the U.S. military used, they had the U.S. military mainly used that facility up there in the valley up there in L.A., you know, going down into Laurel Canyon, but they also took over the Disney studios, and basically what they did is that they worked their propaganda films out of there because there were so many Disney fans, you know, that they wanted to get this whole get behind the wartime efforts. So they used the Disney studios to insert their messages.
Right,
I can see that. I'll throw some corporate trivia in on that one, and that was, the greatest American soft drink company, Coca-Cola, had, if you guys don't remember this story, had bottling, you know, plants all over the world, including Germany, including Berlin. But unfortunately, because Coca-Cola was tied so closely to the military, you know, it's like, you know, drink a Coke, you know, GI soldier holding a Coke, that they couldn't sell Coke in Berlin, but they didn't want to close the factory. And hence, a brand new soft drink was formed, and that name was Fanta. And that soft drink stayed open through the war, and then afterwards it stayed Fanta because it was very popular. Thought that was.
And so Coca-Cola was selling Fanta soda to the Nazis, to the.
Because it was because they couldn't sell, they didn't want to get that mixed message, so they just changed instead of shutting down the factory. Again, business always first. Instead of shutting down the factory, they just created Fanta soda. And I don't know if anyone's still drinks.
Even Standard Oil was selling. They were shipping the oil to South America, and then from South America it was being transported to Germany, and they knew it.
Yeah,
and they even said Alcoa. They even said that the company Alcoa, the aluminum company Alcoa, they were selling the Nazis aluminum.
Yeah. There's a reason why it's called war profiteering, and there's money to be had. And if you can't do it through legal channels, do it in illegal channels. There's money to be had in war, or in a great little documentary called Why We Fight. If anybody hasn't seen that one, I highly recommend it. It's probably 10 years old now, but it's excellent. And they said, the return on investment on war. There was a great politician that said this, military strategist. I think he's in a think tank now, and he said the return investment on war nowadays is like 20 to 30%. And he goes, when war becomes that profitable, you're going to see a lot more of it. And, only on a smaller scales, because world wars can get kind of out of hand. So you do regional stuff. And I thought that was brilliant. Mm-hmm. And corporations just love jumping in on that stuff.
We've got 8 minutes left, guys. Anybody want to bring up anything else?
Yeah, on the aspect of war during World War II, it was amazing. People always ask the question, well, who in the world financed Hitler? How did he get financed? And there was a book, I think you can get it on Amazon. It's about 450 pages, and every bit of it is American corporations, even during the war, were still doing business with the Fuhrer. They were still doing business. IBM, all those companies were still doing business, and yet Americans still ignore this to this day, even though there's been documentary films done on it, there's been PBS shows done on it, and Americans completely blow this over their head and don't realize that they're buying products from companies that supported Hitler. It's just insane.
Yep. He's got an excellent point. I think the big one that stuck out of what you just said was IBM, which for those people who do not know, and I don't necessarily want your show, Michael, to end on a sour note, I'll bring up a happy thing after this, was that IBM is rumored, it's not rumored, it's pretty much fact, they were the ones that supplied the original, counting machines, for certain.
And that's what the numbers were on the tattoos, right? How much you could feed them, how much you could feed them, basically how much could you work them to death?
Yeah.
How much could you work them, feed them till they drop dead?
Yeah.
My
parting shot is for those people out there. We'll go. I'm going to take I can't even segue into this. For those people who want to look for some interesting things in the sky, this has nothing to do with flat Earth or the enclosed world. By the way, can I plug my website on this? Or not?
Yeah. Go ahead. Plug away.
My website, by the way, is enclosedworld.com, and if you forget that or you're too drunk to remember it. Just type in flat Earth clues under Google, and everything will come up. But there was something that was passed on to me years ago, and I took it to heart, and I'm going to pass it on to you guys. And that is, anyone who wants to see really cool things in the sky, and you got a little money to spend, go buy yourself some night vision binoculars. And if you got, I don't know where you live. I live in Colorado, where it's some fairly clear skies, and start looking around up there. Again, this has nothing to do with the enclosed world, but it is amazing what is up in the skies. The sky is crawling with stuff, and it's something that was touched on in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. But it's an interesting point, and that is, everyone thinks, well, UFOs, it's all a bunch of sparkling lights and big bright things. But UFOs are actually like cars, and that is, they work just fine when the lights are off. And when the lights are off, you can't see them, and because they're silent, you can't hear them. And if you don't believe in UFOs, you really should think.
How high are they off the ground, do you think? Or do they...
you mean when I'm watching them?
They come, yeah.
They're higher above, most of them are above commercial air traffic. And I can spot them absolutely between the two, because Denver International Airport, which is almost 40 miles due east of here, the incoming come in from the north, and the outbound, like heading at least to the west, they take off towards the south, from the south of Denver International Airport. And these things are above commercial air traffic, so I can tell exactly the difference between the two. But the sky is freaking crawling with them.
Is there any way to hook those up to like big binoculars and take pictures of this?
Well, that's just it. That's the tough part, and maybe it's a conspiracy thing for another time. But all the different, because I shopped around on Amazon. You can buy night vision binoculars on Amazon all day long. Most of them are made in Russia, which is weird. Most of them specifically out of Belarus, but almost none of them, in fact, none that I could find, have any video freaking output. So the only way you can record them is to hook up a night vision monocular to some sort of camera system, and the weakness there is you have to track them. It's almost impossible to track them with your eyes. You have to just basically set them in one spot, and hopefully something will cross in front of you.
Call the company and ask them to make the next batch with a video.
It'd be tempting to. Well, yeah, I will keep looking, but there's some neat guys
out
there.
What do they cost? What's like the?
Oh, not much. The ones that I buy. I have a couple pair now that are made from Night Owl. Those are the ones I recommend, and I went through a whole bunch.
Yeah. Mark, usually only weirdos have night vision.
I know, but there was I know, because I'm wearing a stainless steel colander.
Over here.
But I say this because there was a British guy that mentioned it in an interview. He goes, yeah, by the way, at the end, he goes, get some night vision and start looking at the sky. And, I had a few glasses of wine. I was going, I'll take that challenge. And I shopped around and got some different night vision things. And the one I stuck with was Night Owl, 5X power. You can't get them very powerful. And it was fascinating. The first night, I'm not kidding you, I go out there and I look and I go, wow, there's how many satellites are up there, right? And then the next night I go out there and I'm following one. I was going, it's just another satellite. And it stops in mid-flight and then makes like a hard right-hand turn and goes ballistic at, I don't know, an unbelievable rate of speed. And I'm just going, okay, now I got to really start watching closer. And it was fascinating. It's the skies out here in Colorado.
Did you ever try having like a flashlight or a real intense flashlight and beaming the light at it? Oh, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I have done that a few times, and every once in a while I'll get a flash from them, like a power up. I've got lasers. I've got green lasers as well, but you really can't do that nowadays because
you get in trouble.
You get in trouble. Even though there's no planes within range of me, they you get caught doing that, you can get busted. Really, it's a federal crime now,
right?
Which is weird. But yeah, I highly recommend anyone that lives in a clear area. If you go out to an athletic field, I go out to these soccer fields out at the edge of town. And they're AstroTurf, and that's pretty good. It's pretty good viewing all the way around. It's the thing that creeps you out is they're all completely silent. That's the weird part, So you bring some music or whatever, but I can see why people miss them. People say, "Oh yeah, UFO followed me over my car for like 2 miles, and I'd never heard it." It's like, well, no, you can't hear them. So anyway, that's mine.
Hey, William, anything to plug or?
Yeah, I've got a electronic news gathering camera, a big Sony monster that has night vision on it. And once in a while, I'll take that out by DIA and I'll look up in the sky. And, you have to be at the right spot at the right time to see it. But once in a while, I can see stuff shooting across the sky. Sometimes they're not bright lights. Believe it or not, sometimes they're like shadows against the stars in the sky that I've picked up.
Nice. Well. Since you're not that far from me, I know you're running out of time. Check out, follow where I-25 is going up the middle of the state. Look over that part if you get a chance, because they seem to be following that from the Springs all the way through Wyoming, and I don't know why. It's like they're using the frickin' highway as a marker.
Okay.
Cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, William, we got to do a whole show on your wife disappearing and whatnot.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
because
because I have all the stuff here from what she was a part of and everything. And man, it's just it's a sad and it's a horrible mess. And all these years later, you still don't get over it. I still say, what the hell happened? What happened to me? Why me? I didn't do anything to any of these people, so I never could understand it. And I'm not the only one. I go out there in the news groups, and people that used to be a part of this group, they're saying the same thing. They've had children disappear into this group. They've had spouses disappear, business partners. And all you got to do is make the wrong move with this group, and it's kind of like the CIA. You just get disappeared.
Wow.
Well, listen, I want to thank William Zabel. I want to thank Mark Sargent, 2 great guests. This has been a great show, guys. I've been happy as punch. I want to thank Cindy Jean-Pierre, our producer. Sorry, everyone, for the technical difficulties. We're going to get through it. I want to thank our audience. I want to thank the people in Canada for listening, and I want to thank the people in the chat room. I'm Mike Ray. This is Parley, and we are out of here.